So Battlefield 6 just launched yesterday, and I've put in a pretty good amount of hours to get a solid first impression. And I've been mainly playing the multiplayer, but let's be honest, nobody's buying Battlefield for the campaign. And so far, it's been a pretty insane launch. And Battlefield 6 has had a huge amount of players. If we take a look at the Steam charts of Battlefield 6, it had an all-time peak yesterday of over 700,000 players, which is just crazy to think about. Especially if you compare that to 2042's all-time peak of like only 100,000 players. I mean, it's just on PC alone, the Battlefield 6 player base is already 7 times that of 2042, which is pretty wild to think about. And when I was playing yesterday, I was streaming, my experience, I was having pretty much a flawless experience in terms of like the launch, in terms of the servers and stuff like that. So I was thinking that Battlefield had broken the curse of having bad launches. However, that wasn't really the case because I had actually bought the game on Steam. And if you bought the game on Steam, you were pretty much having a flawless time. But if you bought the game on the EA app on PC, you had this huge bug which basically stopped you from playing it for I think like 7 hours. And it's pretty insane. The Battlefield boss, Vince Zampella, even told people on Twitter like, hey, you bought it on the EA app, just get a refund and buy it on Steam, which is pretty insane to think about and pretty embarrassing considering, you know, it's a game from EA and you can't even buy it on their own game launcher. But I am glad that I did buy it on Steam because I was actually thinking to buy it on the EA app just because I was thinking that they might give you some sort of exclusive reward or some kind of extra bonus content, something like that. But turns out if you bought on the EA app, you pretty much just got a bonus bug, which kind of sucks. However, EA, I think I saw on Twitter that EA will be giving out rewards to people who are affected. So to try to make up for the bad launch on the EA app, I think it's like some double XP or something like that. But considering that it's only a minority of the player base that are affected, especially it's only the player base on PC, because I think, you know, if you're on PC, realistically, you're going to buy the game on Steam. So it's a small percentage of the PC player base. And then when you consider consoles, it's an even smaller overall percentage. So I think that you can still say, you know, with an asterisk, that Battlefield 6 has had a successful launch. And again, if you compare it to previous Battlefield games, all the way from Battlefield 4, which had a horrible launch, to 2042, which is just a horrible game in general, but even had a horrible launch as well, I do think you can say that Battlefield has kind of broken the curse. But other than that, like, my overall first impression is that Battlefield is back. This game pretty much encapsulates the spirit of Battlefield, and I honestly kind of knew that from the beta. But it's good to like finally play the full game and be like, yeah, this is it. Battlefield is back. It made me feel like I was playing Battlefield 4 again, which to me is like my personal benchmark. That's the game that I've played the most of in terms of the Battlefield franchise. And if you take a look at Steam reviews as well, like the Steam reviews are like overwhelmingly positive or like very positive. So it seems like pretty much the whole community is like, yeah, Battlefield is back, which is good to see. However, there were a few cons or like a few sticking points that I did notice when playing the game. First thing I noticed was that the movement is quite different, especially compared to the beta. It felt almost a bit like Apex Legends, especially with that slide where you can like slide almost like halfway across the map. Okay, I'm exaggerating, but like you can slide super fast, or super far, I should say. And I mean, it's not as exaggerated as Apex Legends, but it certainly is different from the beta, which the beta felt more grounded, more like BF4. This feels a bit more like COD or Apex Legends. Not necessarily worse, because it's not like fully to that extreme, but it is a little bit different. And I honestly kind of prefer the movement in the beta, to be honest. But that's like a minor thing. If we take a look at the gunplay and the recoil, they definitely did increase the recoil in the game from the beta, and they also increases the spread of the shotgun as well, and that's relatively noticeable. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but I did kind of prefer the gunplay in the beta. Like, I don't know why they were tweaking stuff this extreme, but again, these are like small differences. And then the big things that kind of suck were that the settings didn't carry over from the beta, so I had to like redo all my settings, which is kind of annoying. But not only that, the settings didn't carry over from the infantry. So like if you set all your settings on the infantry with your sensitivities and stuff like that, you had to manually do that for every single vehicle class. That just took forever, which kind of sucks. And just overall, the settings menu and the UI just kind of sucks. Like, it's not great, and I'm not really sure why they haven't fixed that, because there was a lot of feedback during the beta about the settings menu and about the UI being pretty bad. So it's kind of a shame they didn't fix that. The UI had like a bunch of repeated settings. It's super hard to find what you're trying to change in the settings. So hopefully they will fix that in the future. We also have the server browser, which is here, so it's good they listen to the community feedback on that. I haven't actually tested the server browser that much, but from what I can see, it does seem to be pretty much what the community was asking for, and it seems pretty similar to BF4. You can like spin up your own server and have custom rules or play a map 24/7. So that seems like pretty much the same as Battlefield 4, but I need to do a bit more testing about that. Another small bug is that the custom search didn't work properly. I also faced this in the beta, but again, this is a pretty minor issue. But it would, if you custom search for a particular map, it will be like 80% of the time it will give you that map and that game mode, but 20% of the time it will just give you some random map or game mode. Again, this is kind of a small issue, but it is pretty annoying. Now, when it comes to the launch maps of Battlefield 6, we do have a relatively good variety. I think it's 9 maps in total, and you know, you have all the way from the all-out warfare maps like Operation Firestorm, where you have tanks and jets and helicopters, super huge maps, a bit more vehicle focused, and then you also have maps that are like Saints Quarter, like this super tiny, almost COD-like map, which is basically only infantry. But we overall have a pretty good variety of maps. So even though 9 maps isn't that many, I think, you know, it's pretty decent for launch. The only thing that disappointed me a little bit was that there's no like Siege of Shanghai type map where there's like a huge levolution. Don't get me wrong, the destruction in this game is pretty good, but there's nothing that's like massive. There's no like level changing event like in Battlefield 4. So that's a slight disappointment. Maybe in the future we'll get a map like Siege of Shanghai where there's some huge levolution event. But again, this is a small, relatively minor critique. But other than that, I think the only specter that's hanging over the future of Battlefield 6 is that EA recently got acquired by like a syndicate of private equity companies. So, I mean, and if you know anything about private equity, this is not going to be good for Battlefield. I gotta be honest. Like, pretty much every time a company gets acquired by a private equity firm, they pretty much just try to squeeze as much as possible out of the company. And that probably just means we're going to have more aggressive monetization in the future. So like more expensive battle passes, more crazy skins to try to squeeze as much money out of the player base. So that does kind of suck. I mean, and it's not exactly like EA themselves were shy about aggressively monetizing their games, but now that it's gone private and it's being owned by this private equity syndicate, it just doesn't really bode well for the future of Battlefield 6. And I do fear that maybe like by like season 4 or 5, there's gonna be like crazy skins and like them trying to get as much money out of you as possible. You have to pay for extra maps, stuff like this. I mean, so far it doesn't seem like it's going that way, but again, because they've been acquired by this new company, they've gone private, I would caution just to be careful. The player base needs to be very aware and make sure that doesn't happen. A lot of pressure on the company, but again, that's kind of out of our control. But hopefully this acquisition won't make them start to like ruin the game. But again, who knows? Time will tell when it comes to that. Now, that being said, all of these puns and critiques are relatively minor. If we take a look at the core gameplay loop of Battlefield 6, it's solid. Like, all of these things can be fixed and tweaked in the future. And I'll say I give this score like an overall score of like 8 out of 10, 8.5 out of 10. This is like a solid game. But yeah, tell me what you guys think of the game in the comments. Are you enjoying it so far? Did you face any bugs on the launch, or did you get it on the EA app? But yeah, I'll leave you guys with some gameplay, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Extra med supplies here.